everyone. I am not Todd Frederick because Todd is away this evening on a family matter. So appreciate your patience and support. We're going to start with a joint meeting with the York Planning Board. Did you all want to come forward to the table? Hello, and it is Monday, June 22nd, 2026. We'll have the official call to order after we finish our half hour with you all.
I don't know.
Dave, do you want to introduce your committee, your board members, and then tell us what we have here in our packet and what's sort of on your agenda?
Absolutely. So I'm David Woods, board chair. To my right is Crystal Tenney, alternate. To my left is Wayne Boardman, and then Dylan Smith for the town staff. This evening we have two amendments that had been forwarded. One was Article 4, use regulations.
No, sorry, that's the other one.
Article
Yeah.
12.
Article 10F.
10.
10F and Article 12.
Article 10F and Article 12. The HDC Historic District Commission has Article 12, and 10F is in relation to affordable housing. And a lot of those changes are from LD 1829. So we're just getting ahead of those mandatory things that we need to do to comply with the state regulations. And that's about it.
Should we, well, the first one in our packet is Article 12, the historic and archaeological resources proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance. You want to tell us
You can tee that up.
a little bit more about that?
There are three members from the Historic District Commission today. This is really something that they've been trying to fix for quite some time. If you recall, this amendment came up, I think it was 2 years ago, before the Select Board for hearing. Really, it's the property tax refund policy located in Article 12, currently as is, and as written right now, is really an ordinance and a section within the ordinance that hasn't worked for at least a very long time. And what the HDC has tried to do with that section of the ordinance is to, well, in essence, make it work and make it understandable as it relates to a process for receiving a tax refund. There are three members here tonight. I would just call, is it okay to call upon them to come up and just talk
Certainly.
briefly about it? Scott, come up.
You want one or three? Good evening. So what we're trying to do here, as Dylan said, is make something, a tool that's been unworkable, workable. And that's making it less of a bureaucratic process and make it all attainable within a year. The proposal before
Scott?
you,
I'm sorry,
yes,
I can't remember. Did you introduce yourself in your role?
I did not. Thank you for the reminder.
If you could do that, that'd be
I'm Scott
great.
Stevens. I'm the chair of the York Historic District Commission.
Thank you.
Thanks. In working on possible revisions, we found that the town attorney had problems with some of our proposals, looking at the enabling legislation, the state legislation, and at guidance by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission, to which that legislation refers. We were, in her opinion, restricting this too much. So we were looking at it as something to help people within historic districts or whose properties had been granted landmark status, and initially as an incentive for people to consider being in historic districts. In her opinion, the legislation is very broad. It was written before there were any historic districts in the state. And it simply says that anyone willing to sign a maintenance agreement by which they will care for their property by standards established, should qualify for a tax credit. So we have modified it to be in compliance with that interpretation of the law, and it really broadens it. It takes it beyond the few people who are in those districts and makes it available to anybody in the community. So I'll stop there to see if you have questions. Yes.
I have one, Scott, thank you. You mentioned the town attorney. Has she reviewed this, what you've put forth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a long process back and forth, and she gave her okay to this.
So I don't think I support this. I understand the intent, maintaining older buildings, helping people to be able to afford to maintain older buildings, because I live in an older building, it's a challenge. But it just seems to me that it's tax relief for the wealthy. I guess I'll just leave it at that. I just think a lot of the people who are buying the older buildings and maintaining them and bringing them up can afford to maintain them, and they don't need this sort of incentive.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. That's a point that some of you raised when I had individual conversations with you a while back. So we've looked at this. We've looked at the assessor's database, and using the criterion of being 75 years old or older, we looked and we found that there are 904 properties in town that would fit that criterion that are below the average tax valuation. So that's a significant number. I think it's not a majority, but it's a significant number. So that they're not all concentrated among the affluent. And in a community like this where by some standards everybody is affluent, if they can even afford a house in town, I find that's a little bit of a difficult one to address. But there are these 904 below the average tax evaluation.
Okay. Now, we did have this conversation.
We did. I didn't know about the 904 then. So. And this is something, this would be a tool in the toolbox. It could be used to help preserve the character of our town, which I hope we all, to some extent or another, think historical character is an important part of. But ultimately, the way we've written this, the Budget Committee, the Select Board, and the voters would determine whether the town could afford to do this in a given year, or whether it was desirable in a given year. The Historic District Commission would be in a position of recommending these.
Yeah,
I can just say that I remember the first time I came in, I drove into York, and I just saw the most beautiful buildings. And I know they're so old and had such character, and just, it made you feel as if, wow, this is a special place. And to know that people actually, the owners put effort into maintaining these buildings and maintaining the character of them, I think it's important, and I think it's part of what we should be encouraging. Doesn't matter if you live in a historic or a brand-new building, you should be doing that, but, especially where they are, and it's the main entrance to the town when you drive in. You come off the expressway, which is filled with traffic and craziness, and you drive in, and just, I feel a calm just coming. Sometimes I take that route instead of going down Route 1 to get home.
I would point out, too, that along York Street, the north side, where some of the iconic buildings in town are, none of those are protected, except, well, there's one that's a landmarked property. But any one of those, there's one that's for sale right now, a Victorian, whose owners have kept it up to standards that we would highly approve. But the next owner may decide they don't like Victorian houses, and there's nothing to prevent them from knocking it down and building something modern in its place. So this tool wouldn't prevent that, but it would make the burden of caring for an historic house and going through the extra effort of going through a review process a little more affordable.
David, does the planning board support this proposal?
I believe we were unanimously forwarding it to you guys. I'll kind of summarize my perspective of it. It was fixing something that was broken. So my thought would be either to remove language completely because it's not being able to be utilized, or with all the work put into this, adopt it and at least be able to have a functioning tool. It doesn't mean it needs to be funded. So to me, that was a big push forward. I do see benefit in the future, possibly to expand the historic area because there is maybe more incentive at that point or less fear being brought into an area that might have restrictions. So I don't know if that was part of the goal as well, to hopefully expand the town's concern for character zone, I'd say.
Thank you. I'll just say I agree with Robert in that I oppose the proposal. I think we all care for our houses, and giving a cash tax rebate for repairs to this class to be funded by property taxes from everyone else just doesn't feel right. We are currently facing a situation where we have a similar structure for our property tax credit program for low-income folks who can't afford their property taxes. And there's currently more demand than funded. And to me, that's a sort of need that would be a priority as opposed to historic homes. But I really value historic homes, and I think the folks who own historic homes value them as well. I'll stop there.
Can I ask Scott a question?
Of course.
Scott, how long have you been on the commission?
13 years, I believe.
And have there been, with the current cumbersome ordinance, has there anybody applied for
No.
funding? No.
No, the reasons being it's too low. It's a 10% credit. And the way it's currently written, one has to apply in a given year, get recommended by the HDC, the Select Board has to approve, it has to go on the town warrant, which would happen the following May or November, and be approved by the voters. So it's too low and too long a process no one's ever bothered. They've sort of started, they've inquired, and then they've not done it.
And then, pardon my ignorance, is there funds available right now? Is there a pot of money that the HDC is
No.
overseeing? And
No.
so
we
it would have to start funding next year if this is
Yeah,
the year
this-
after?
This would be a budget item that we would budget in advance. Up to this amount could be awarded in tax credits. It would have to make it through the budgeting process, and we all know what that is.
Have you had discussions with your members about what funds you'd be anticipating asking for for the
Great
next
question.
fiscal year?
Great question, because we've never been asked to, we haven't had a reason through our reporting or whatever to keep track of what the costs of the measures we've approved have been. Just to give you an idea, in the last 13 years, we've approved fewer than 3 alterations on average in a given year. It's a total of 37 over 13 years. So we're not talking about a huge number. And incidentally, during that time, we've been unable to prevent the demolition of 60 buildings. So we're losing historic structures in our community every year. You can do the math of how many that's 60 divided by 13. I'm not that good at head math, but they're going away. And when I've heard from folks about, yes, people who buy these houses like them and they care for them. We don't want to put anyone on the spot or shame them, but there are many examples of historic structures that have been altered, added to, subtracted from, such that you can't tell that they're historic structures. I wish everybody who bought one cared for it as carefully. Some do, and they deserve recognition, but some don't. They're just old places that need updating in their minds.
Thank you.
Anything else on this? I think we're halfway
Yeah,
through
yeah,
our
I
session,
appreciate the
so
time you've given me.
Certainly.
If it's possible to have a real public hearing and get into it, I'd certainly appreciate that.
So,
Article
Chair
10F.
Woods, yeah, 10F, can you tell us about that one?
Yes.
Or Dylan, or whoever is
Yeah.
appropriate?
I'll let Dylan start because there's a lot of
Sure.
items.
So Article 10F, this amendment is basically trying to get in front of the state's acts that we've talked about, and we've had some workshops about regarding 1829, an act to build housing for Maine families and attract workers to Maine businesses. What this tries to do is get ahead of that. These laws go into effect regarding housing density. They go into effect July 1st, 2027, which means May of 2027, we have to be in compliance with those minimum requirements. If you recall, the minimum requirements are going to be basically the town where our growth area is and/or where water and sewer is. Minimal lot size is going to be 5,000 square feet, and we have to allow up to 4 dwelling units on 5,000 square feet. That's the state standards that will go into effect when you have water and sewer and you're in a growth area. LD 2003, a couple years, about a year or two before, is an affordable housing law that went into effect. And what that housing law at the time said is that density had to be 2.5 times your base density, base residential density, where you had water and sewer and in your growth area. Now, LD 1829 didn't make that go away. In fact, it basically supercharged it. So if you do the math, 2.5 times 4 units on a 5,000 square foot, you get 10 units. That needs to be your base density for quote unquote affordable housing development. And what we've tried to do with this amendment is to get ahead of that and try to implement those required changes in advance for a vote in November, rather than waiting all the way till May. We still, and the planning board still, and staff is still working on the base density changes that we'll be going through, and we've been working with Mary Ann and Marilyn to go through that process of what that looks like for the May vote, to look at what those base standards will be, dimensional standards and lot size standards. But this is a way to get it ahead of it as it relates to affordable housing, workforce affordable housing, to be precise. What we've done with those changes is we've made some modification to the dimensional regulations, as you might have seen. We've added some language as it relates to density and what those requirements would be based on that mathematical equation that I talked about, 2.5 times your base density. And we've added some additional language as it relates to performance standards regarding architectural appearance. If you're going to have greater density, then the planning board and staff thinks there should be some greater evaluation, certainly, as what it looks like. We have been in communication with York Housing as well about these changes. And from conversations we've had, they've been supportive of these housing. As somebody who does workforce housing developments in town, that was somebody we did reach out to speak with as it relates to this. Certainly, I think they can get behind the density standards, or the proposed density standards as is. Other than that, we've also added some certain caveats, and this is discussion with the board as well as with developers, regarding a market rate apartment option. We think to diversify housing, and actually York Housing thought it was a good idea, and a private developer who does a lot of big developments around here, including one of the affordable housing developments at Hannaford Drive, that a market rate apartment option to allow for larger developments of 10 or more, that 30% could be market rate of the total. But again, remember that a significant proportion has to be 80% AMI and up to 120% AMI. So I think this is a real good diversification of housing stock within a development, and it actually is also a caveat or carrot to maybe getting more development, of which we received some positive feedback and about this. Also, as part of the amendment is a building height increase exception. What the state law in LD 1829, they did make this change in LD 1829, has to be affordable housing developments. You have to allow it to be 14 feet above your base zone height requirement. Predominantly in town, that's 35 feet, so we have to allow up to 49 or 50 feet if somebody comes in and does an affordable housing development, so building up. So we did add language as it relates to that, but to again ensure that total number of dwelling units predominantly go to those that are in need of affordable housing, at least on the rental side, the 80% AMI mark. And then we just added some pedestrian access requirements, more or less a performance standard as it relates to pedestrian safety and access circulation, so we can ensure that our evaluation with site plans of the future ensure connectivity, our surrounding environments. So in essence, those are the amendments that the planning board and staff are proposing for board consideration.
And once again, you're forwarding this to us and planning board supportive?
I think I was the only no vote, but it wasn't for the,
Oh, do tell.
for the purpose of the ordinance. It was more just, there's a lot of big changes. LD 1829 is moving our hand pretty strongly on a lot of things. So I have some reservations with that. And we haven't done a lot of work on the growth area, the other districts and zones. So I kind of wanted to see how those played out prior to layering on top of those zones. The problem is the minimum lot size is now going to be 5,000 square feet, and how that interacts with setbacks and the dimensional regulations that we currently have. We're going to have to change a lot of those so there's actually a buildable envelope. So now adding the affordable housing density on top of that is just scary without really seeing it fully built out. So I guess having some mock parcels done up on a napkin kind of thing, just to see what it would look like on an extreme side or a practical side. But other than that, I think it looks pretty good.
Questions or comments for the planning board on this one?
Could we talk a little bit about the market rate apartment option, that 10-F-4.9, where 30% can be built? So the workforce AMI now is 80 to 120,
Up to 120, yep.
which is always a joke because they build to the 120. I mean,
They did it, and we made a change that requires, a recent change that requires a certain amount has to be at 80% AMI now.
so what's the difference between 120% of AMI and a market rate? Meaning,
Oh, as far as affordability
well,
goes?
no, just
or
in terms of the
caveats?
number. I mean, if 120% of AMI for a two-bedroom is $2,000, I'm just wondering how you figure out how do you figure out what market is?
And we're considering market rate as anything above 120 and beyond that.
It'd be unregulated.
Yep.
So the incentive would be, you can build your penthouse or your ocean view and then also get the affordable benefit out of it.
Yeah, it just seems like sometimes we think that, gee, you know, if you give them more, you give them this 30% at like 150 of AMI, then gee, they'll do more at the 80%. But that never, I'm not sure that really happens.
And
As a former developer myself, we just try to make as much money as we possibly can.
And that's a fair point, Robert, because I did talk to a developer who does market rate and did the Hannaford Drive. Those are all at the 120%.
Yeah.
And even he was saying he's having a hard time filling at that 120 because finding that some people are just out or, you know, and it was seemingly that I won't say it was relenting on that 80% mark, but now our ordinance requires a percentage that has to be at that 80% AMI, which is the true quote-unquote affordable for rent mark, as you know.
Yeah.
And then you have that missing middle is between 80% to the 120. They call it the missing middle housing,
So what
basically.
percent?
And then anything above 120 is considered quote-unquote
So,
market.
and what was the percent of the 80%? I mean, what percent of the development?
Yeah, I thought I had it right here, but I want to say it, I can dig it up real quick for you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
While he's looking for that, sorry. I was just saying, by reason of being part of a workforce housing complex, it's not going to be market rate in the $1 million category, obviously. But it allows the flexibility of a developer to get whatever the market will bear. And so that's why, again, they'll automatically, if it's in a multifamily housing, for instance, you know, the market rate is only going to go so far, but still, it's a flexibility that could mean the difference in a project penciling out for the developer or not.
Yeah, so I found the section is 30% has to be at that 80% level. So it'd be 30% has to be at that 80% AMI. If you have 10 units, 30%, so 3 would have to be. 30% could be market rate, so another 3, and the rest could be up to 120. So a mixing, it's kind of this interesting, cool blend. It's something that we'd probably prefer to do as well.
I'm sorry, Chair, but so is these percentages, I mean, are they based on examples that are done someplace else?
Yes, we do have examples from, and I don't have them right now, but we were looking at multiple examples. Before I quote it, I'll have that ready for the hearing and stuff.
That'd be great, thank you.
Marianne, yeah.
So these changes that you put forth, they have to be done to comply with LD 1829?
By July 1st of 2027.
Okay. And David, was your point that you prefer a different area of ordinance changes to occur first before we add this layer to it?
It was more seeing how the rest of the rezoning or not rezoning, but restructuring to absorb the LD 1829 changes on all the other zones would happen first.
So that's what you were thinking, in your brain, you'd like that first and then this layer after it?
Yeah, some of the language in here says whichever is less restrictive. So if some of the zones need to go down to 8-foot setbacks on 5,000 square feet lot, you can have 10 units on that. It's a pretty big building, especially with the height increase, up to 49 feet.
Up to 49 feet if you, again, we added some caveats in here, 40% have to be 80, AMI and all that, but there
I don't
is.
want to, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yep, there is an allowance for that in state law.
Thank you. That's a good point. But those percentages are what LD 1829 says the town must do.
Well, what LD 1829 says must do as it relates to a percentage, what is quote-unquote the definition of affordable housing development is 51% of the total units within a development for rent would have to be 80% AMI. The rest could be, doesn't say, but 51%, the majority of units, if you have a rental apartment complex getting built, 51% would have to be up to that 80% AMI. And then it doesn't talk about what the standard would be after that. So we try to mix with the missing middle, with the lower income, and with market rate within a situation like that.
That 49% is what you adapted for the town of York.
Well, we're looking at, it depends. If you build a 49-foot building, we say 40% of those units have to be low income, up to 80% AMI. And then the rest could be 30% market rate, and then the rest after that can go up to 120% AMI. And 120% AMI, mind you, the state's requirement on that for ownership purposes, that's if all these units were for ownership, that's the mark. It would be 51% of the total units would have to be at 120% AMI if they were all ownership unit.
I
But
think
we don't see that
I
too much of that
understand
around
both
here.
your points. Thank you.
We're past time. But, so can I summarize what I understand we have in front of us for this one? LD 1829 is going to require changes to not only affordable housing overlay district, but to others. And you decided to tackle this affordable housing first. And you've got things in here that address LD 1829, and you've added some additional provisions that you're recommending
Regarding
in
performance.
addition to the ones that address LD 1829. And then you would anticipate coming forth with
The base.
proposed amendments for other zoning districts. And David, maybe what you're saying is you'd like to see them all rather than doing this one first and then having the others follow in May. Just to sort of,
Yeah,
once this is, if this was to be adopted,
right.
then it's adopted, right? And you
Yeah.
wouldn't have as much flexibility with, unless you were to amend it yet again. May,
That's
is
just a
that-
small piece, it's a very large change, I feel, for the town. So I'm not even comfortable with the other stuff being needed to be done by next May. There's a lot of work I feel we need to look at. We still need to talk to the sewer districts, water district for capacity, and just make sure the town can actually handle it. I think off the top, it seemed okay, but we just haven't gone deep into all the nitty-gritty that I'd be more
But on the other hand,
comfortable
there's a
with.
new law that we need to be in compliance with, so
Exactly.
that's the balance. Okay. What else is there something else that you wanted to chat about this evening? There was something else in our packet about
I think
open space.
there are two members from the Conservation Commission that have wanted to just talk to you briefly about the proposed changes to the open space conservation subdivision ordinance that they're looking to bring forward either sooner rather than later. And I believe they requested some time with you to talk about that. They've been working with the Future Land Use Ordinance Subcommittee of the Planning Board, and it's up to you if you
And
want
the
to
Planning
indulge
Board.
them.
Yeah, has this gone through the planning board?
And to speak to the planning board, I think they were looking,
Yeah,
to
they
talk to
reached
both of
out,
us,
but we had just had our meeting where we forwarded these two items. So we've kind of missed that window of that portion. was my
As Todd would say, what's the board's pleasure? Should we have them to discuss directly with us tonight or go through the planning board first?
It makes sense to me, the planning board.
First.
To
Yeah.
have it vetted, and that way we can ask what the planning board's vote was on it.
Yeah, I appreciate
Could I
folks
make,
coming
could I
forward.
make just one request, is that, you're busy. I don't, but we've talked before about trying to make sure that we don't get to that point where you're in hearing time and you're discovering something that you didn't realize was there and making changes. If we can get anything just moved up in the calendar a little bit, even if it's not official hearing, it's a discussion like this, that we can get your concerns early on so we can make those changes rather than be stuck in a situation that we kind of back ourselves into sometimes. That's my only request.
Specifically on the Conservation
Any-
Commission request or
This
anything?
and the other
Because I think
changes coming.
that's the effort with this. Did we schedule it earlier enough? Maybe that's really the question, right?
I mean, from personal knowledge, I know the Conservation Commission has been trying to get in front of the planning board on the recommendation. I don't know what the scheduling issues are, but I mean, they're here if we want to ask them. I don't think we need to have them get up and speak, but I don't know if there was a scheduling issue with getting in front of the planning board or what.
I think I'd just like to say, I think they're also soliciting select board feedback before going to the planning board.
Okay, so they
5 minutes?
they want
Sure.
feedback.
It feels backwards, but sure, 5 minutes. We hate to,
I think they should go to the planning board first and then come to the select board. But
I agree, but
it's fine.
5 minutes.
We're here.
We've got it.
We're here, right? No one standing.
Yes, I will try to be brief. Stephanie Byrne, I support the Conservation Commission on Open Space Matters. And yes, we have revised the open space amendments that we put forth last year that didn't go through. And since that time, we met with Todd, and Todd had recommended that we try to get a small group together to discuss these, and there were lots of scheduling problems. But he gave us a lot of valuable feedback. We took all that valuable feedback into account. We revised our amendments. We made them shorter, more concise. We took out a couple, and we really emphasized the ones that we thought were the most important, which were to include information about the open space holder being solicited more upfront to get a relationship with the applicant, the importance of them being in front of the planning board, a requirement that they be there in partnership, to provide some leeway to the planning board in terms of making adjustments if the open space holder is the one that is putting them forth, that is going to increase the conservation value of the overall development. And we wanted to make sure that they got out in front of you in a red line version so you could see what the amendments were versus the rest of the revisions. And to us, it's a very complex process. We're doing our best. We've been working at this quite a while, and we just wanted to make sure that these amendments, which were approved by the planning board last year but now have some new wording, we wanted to get them in front of the select board to get their input so we would know what that we were working with.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So the next process would be for them to approach the planning board generally, correct?
I think that's the sense of
So
our board, yes.
When could you guys talk after this and set that up?
Yeah, if there isn't any comment from the select board, we can run that through the process.
Personally, I haven't reviewed it because I would only do so once the planning board has done so. Thank you, Stephanie.
Feel free to comment during the hearing portion of the planning board as well, whether it be in writing or in person. We'd love to hear it. If there's something that is really going to be an issue, we want to know then rather than afterwards.
Got it. Thank you for coming. Thank you. A half hour goes quickly, I know, and appreciate you coming. Okay, it's now 7:39 PM on Monday, June 22nd, 2026, and this is the York Select Board in the York Public Library, calling the meeting to order. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As noted, there are 4 of us tonight. Todd Frederick is not with us. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. And
As acting chair, so we had a late minute submit, or last minute after the publishment of the agenda submission for the 4th of July fireworks on July 3rd by the Harbor Reading Room for York Harbor area. That was submitted today, I believe. So the revised consent agenda would be approval of the special event permit, and I believe Catherine has copies of that here. Only because it's time sensitive, we generally don't ask to put things on if it's acceptable to the board to consider something not on the printed agenda.
thank you. So if the board's amenable, this would bring our consent agenda to 4 items: the minutes of the June 8th, 2026 Select Board meeting, a poll permit, business license renewal for Beach Bliss Cafe, and now we have a special event permit application from the York Harbor Reading Room for fireworks, as per is their annual custom, this year on July the 3rd. Is there a motion?
So move, accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Are there any comments on any of the items in the consent agenda?
I have two, Madam Vice Chair. For the Citizens Forum, the spelling, just spelling of Mike Miciche should be Micciche. And Steve Dunn, Steve has an E on Dunn. And I think that's all that I caught there.
Thank you. Any other
Oh.
change?
One more. For others present, I thought it would be appropriate to have the old York Historical Society Executive Director, Catherine Duffy, noted where she did read the semi-quincentennial proclamation.
Yeah.
Good job.
That's noted in the minutes, but listing her and others present is what you're recommending.
Yes.
Anybody else have any changes or corrections? I have one, and that's that this template refers to Robert as the vice chair. And I think this was the first meeting.
And you were offended, I understand.
No, I was not offended.
You want your due.
Are all of those changes acceptable to you?
Acceptable, yes,
Marilyn and
yes.
Robert? All right, so we'll vote incorporating those changes. Robert?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
And the vice chair votes yes. So consent agenda passes 4-0 as amended. Next is the chair's report. I got nothing. Which brings us to manager's report.
Right, I've got one item, two items. First off, I want to say big thank you to the Public Works Department who've been busy starting their street work. I think people have seen a lot of it around town. I think we've got our superintendent here in the audience, but a lot of the projects that you're seeing are first layers of pavement going down, so you do not need to worry that the York Street Route 1 intersection or the loop around Parish Lane, which is the loop around the town hall and the First Parish Church, are not the final versions, but they're going to stick around for a while, and they'll have finished pavement later on this summer. Hannaford Drive is another one this happens. We've gotten a lot of questions about at the town hall what that's about. So when they repave a road, they have to raise structures up. You'll see in Hannaford Drive, for example, the sewer department had to raise several manholes that are visible, coned off with barrels. That's just so you don't drive over them and lose a wheel in the process. And then the final pavement layer gets matched up with all of those. So nice job, Tim and crew. A lot of work. I know that they've been up to a lot. And speaking on another public works project, I've got a rough draft at the former vice chair, definitely not the current vice chair's request, to take a look at so this is just for comment for the board at a future date or, tonight, but I don't expect you to give real-time feedback of a communication plan. This is the first half of it, identifying the tools that we'll use for the village project. We'll have another section that'll deal with who's going to be doing all those things. So we've identified several items that'll take place, be used, email lists, contact, websites, on-site meetings, and just our regular updates that we'll provide. The frequency of those, we are working right now. I don't have anything to show the public, but we're working on developing a project website that'll have contact information, where to go if you have questions, and a single email address for the project that will be front and center. Be single email that you can email. It's going to go to everyone involved in the project. We're working right now on whether that's possible to send it to the contractor, engineering director, town manager's office, resident engineers, all at once as a blast to try to address day-to-day concerns that the public might have, questions, so the right person, everybody will see it, so at least the right person, whoever it is to respond, will get that email. So ways to improve communication around that, and we will be going door to door at some time in the very near future this summer to collect contact information for the immediate abutters for the project for businesses. So you can expect to see a friendly or semi-friendly face from the town like myself or someone from my office knocking on your business door asking who you want to be the point person for contact for the project. So we get all the people that are going to be directly impacted to get those scheduling emails and updates. So.
And so you welcome feedback individually from board members about this?
And we can put it on a future agenda, but I know it's time sensitive. If we want to discuss it in more detail or with different staff members, for example, I'm happy to do that. And just thanks to, I know, to the clerk's office for running 2 back-to-back elections recently. We haven't met since the primary, but just completed the primary after the annual referendum election. So I know we've got a full agenda. With that, Madam Acting Chair, I'll hand the gavel back to you, if that's okay.
Thank you. I think we have an on the radar
We do, yep. So any
Sheet,
comments,
are there any
questions?
material
Some of these
changes from your
items are
perspective?
on here for tonight, for discuss, or at least one of the items is on here for tonight. 2 of them, we just had a legal update with our town attorney. We should probably say that.
Is there any input to town manager right now on the radar?
This is just a general question. A couple items have been dropped. Is that, like, in your view, that they've already been taken care of, or will we see them at another date?
Some of them may, yeah, you can.
I'll
you can
use one,
throw 'em
for
out, yeah.
example, Bog Road project update in July. That was on our last meeting,
No,
but it's not
that's-
on this one.
Should be, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm still planning to do that. In fact, that's present.
And we had discussed in the past that this September would review some of the parking issues. It was sort of broad-based, and I see that's not on this newest one that was dropped off.
It'll get added.
And then just one other one for January. The last meeting, we had preliminary hearings on ordinances, but I see it's been replaced with budget process, and ordinances are in February. Was that just a timing
Yeah,
issue you adjusted?
Generally, the preliminary, you may have some in January, but the final budget ordinance hearings are usually in February, correct? Yeah.
Okay, it was just to the point of what maybe Mr. Boardman said. I didn't want it to be,
Yeah, those are rough
last minute.
placeholders just for my brain
Thank
right
you.
now, but yep, you're correct. You may have a ordinance public hearing in January. That's a good point, depending on when they get to us. First hearings, I guess.
Robert?
Yeah, and I thought you were going to add whenever you think the York Village revitalization is going to begin, which I think is October. You're going to add that to this.
We should shortly have that. I will put that on the next one, September, October timeline, yep.
And in August, we have present the short-term rental data. I would think that we could do that in July. I mean, I think we have access to all that data now, don't we?
I believe so. As soon as we do, I'll push that up, yep. There's not a date next to August because it's a placeholder there for me. But yeah, I'm happy to move that forward as soon as it's available. To get to your, just answer a question about the village project. I probably should have announced this, we are under contract, but we're still the very preliminary phases. So as soon as we have scheduling information, yeah. No, nothing's moved, obviously, yet. As far as I understand, they've just finished doing all their insurance paperwork and bonds and things like that, so that
Well,
was
things can
finalized.
always move on here. It's just nice to get it on. And
Yep.
then, if it's moved up and it happens in September, well,
It just seems like if we want to hear the short-term rental data, there's a lot that's chock full in July. It looks like a little overwhelming. Will we have time to actually hear it?
I guess that'll probably be a Todd and Marla and I discussion for agenda setting.
As we're building agendas. Okay. But I'm happy to know that the contract was completed and we have the data.
Yep,
Good. And
Well,
maybe we
there-
need to,
yep.
or our planning department needs to analyze it, or,
They are building our interface as we speak, the company. So I know they had a kickoff like 3 weeks ago, I believe, on the project. So it's underway.
oh, it's underway. Okay.
Can I,
Good point.
a follow-up to that, the last I knew, we had an RFP, and I was waiting for something to come to this board to grant the contract. Did I miss something? I don't think it didn't come to this board to award a contract to anybody.
No, it
But
was
yet-
Under threshold.
yeah, it was under the award, there's $15,000. So under the purchasing amount, it doesn't require formal action on that.
I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Sorry.
Nope. Well, I'm glad the date is happening because we're waiting for it. I just thought it would come to this board first before the award.
Generally, it would if it was over 25,000, I believe is the threshold requires board action, or 50,000, depending how it's budgeted, so. Yeah.
Learn something new every month, don't we? I have one, and that is Cliff Walk cost estimate and follow-up discussion. Maybe
Yep.
that can go under at the bottom, under outstanding and status.
Sounds good, yep.
Unless you know when to expect that.
I don't immediately, I know that Nicole's already had our emergency management director has already had conversations about the previous discussion we had about splitting the cost estimate into two parts, and the feedback I had is, yes, that's possible, and they were moving forward, so I just don't have a time on when we'll see the
Great,
the
well,
full
let's just
amount.
have it on that outstanding then.
You got it.
Anything else from any board members? Anything else, Peter, from you and manager's report?
I think we just hit all of it in rapid-fire succession on this document, so thank you, yeah.
All right.
Half of our open projects, I think, have just been discussed, so there we go.
Moving on to D, awards. First one is 1045 US Route 1 demolition.
Good evening. Tim DePerio, Superintendent of Public Works. Under the direction of the town manager, DPW has solicited bids for the demolition of the building located at 1045 US Route 1. The following quotes were received from local construction companies. Abbott Brothers, Inc., $44,250. Raynell Trucking, $44,976.32. Fascianis Enterprises, $81,350. Laverty Construction Corp., $86,000 even. Our recommendation is to award the demolition of the building located at 1045 Route 1 to Abbott Brothers, Inc. for the contract price of $44,250.
Questions from board members? Yes, Robert.
So when they're done with this, the building's gone, what will the site look like? Are they going to fill in the foundation? They're not taking the foundation away?
The contract is not to remove the foundation, and it's not to fill in, it's just to remove the wood structure, the building itself, haul that away. So DPW would take care of it. It's, I guess, under the board's, town manager's direction, if you want to see the foundation filled in, we can fill it in.
You guys could do that.
Yeah, if you know, that's a future discussion, but that's,
I think we'd probably like that.
Or if we want to spend some money to do the removal, it was substantial. I think it was in the $20,000 to $40,000 range for concrete
yeah,
removal.
some of the bids were over 100,000 to do. Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Okay, thank you.
But that is something that Public Works can look at doing. So this is removal of the actual structure, yeah. Make safe of the site. If you notice, Tim, props for you guys started work in terms of
Today,
brush
we
removal
cleared
today.
the brush around the building so that the contractor can get in there with their bigger machinery, dumpsters and stuff.
And part of the rush on this is fiscal year, so Tim has some money in his budget under contracted services that can be used to complete this. Thank you, Tim, for saving money in your budget this year. And the work can start and probably be completed within the current fiscal year, which is no small feat.
As far as I
because-
know, it should see some action there tomorrow. If it's approved.
So Tim, I'm always for looking at safety. How are you going to make sure that, kids love to play pranks and be in areas they're not supposed to be in? So what are you guys doing?
I'm sure we'll do a walk through in the building first, make sure there's nobody in there.
Yeah.
And then, from there, they'll have men on site and we'll have some guys on site and just, keep everybody out.
And after it's demolished and you say it's just the open area, right?
if it's something that looks dangerous, we'll put some fencing around it temporarily till the decision's made on what to do with it.
Okay. I have some ideas what to do with it, but, you know.
I think a lot of
think
people
about
do.
that.
I might have talked to some people too, so. But also it is an open site that's visible from the road, so
Yeah.
there's not, I would say the situation will be much safer and more visible to the public than the site that exists now, where,
Yeah, I agree.
it's enclosed and a potential attractive nuisance.
I know teenagers, trust
And
me.
it'll be kind of a piece, but it won't be like, like a implosion where it's just gone. So if there was somebody around or somebody we missed, they're gonna hear noises and crunching and stuff. They'll have plenty of time to evacuate.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll read. I move to award the bid for the demolition of the building located at 1045 US Route 1 to Abbott Brothers, Inc. For the amount of $44,250.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the vote. Robert?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
Vice Chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tim.
It's a little bit of irony that we're getting this done when Todd's not here. I just throw that out.
It's more ironic that he's coming back on Wednesday, I understand it, and the bulk of the work may be done by then if Tim gets moving, so.
I just want to say, Tim,
Welcome home, Mr. Chair, if you're watching.
I forgot to mention, I drove by yesterday, and the place is just, the vines and the bushes and the trees, that in itself is a lot of work, and so we appreciate that.
I think we just tell him.
Thank you for
tomorrow
getting
and
it
get
done.
this
Oh, God, no.
Well, when he and I were communicating, that was the one thing he mentioned that he hoped would pass tonight, so.
And I think these guys should get, the Public Works crew should get a lot of credit, because that was part of, you can see some of the demolition quotes and included vegetation removal, so I think it was something that we felt we could do, so they stepped up and said, well, we need to do it anyways, regardless of whether the gets approved, so they stepped up and did it today, so.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you for saving
you.
us money, Tim and crew, appreciate it.
Next, we have energy purchasing recommendations.
Good evening, Taylor McGuire, Environmental Planner. So our last meeting, we awarded a bid for an RFP to Energy Broker Services to Sparrow Energy Group. He has already done some significant work for us and has placed a couple recommendations forward. So the first is enrolling in a solar subscription program. There were two options. One is a 15% discount with no minimum term, and the other is a 20% discount with a minimum of 3-year term. Sparrow Energy Group recommends that we stick with the 15% discount for a no minimum term, just because as we're getting into solving some of our energy issues, it provides the town a little bit more flexibility to see things that might come up in the future. The second, that's for all eligible accounts. Oh, goodness. That's for all eligible accounts. There are 31 eligible accounts out of we have 42 total. And those are listed, they should be in your packet by each account line. And it includes kilowatt hours in there as well. The second recommendation is for an energy supplier. First Point Power is the lowest energy supplier. The rates listed here were, when we made these packets last week, it's 0.12475 cents, so 12 cents. I had some conversation with Jeff today. They have only increased a little bit. It's 0.12481 of a cent, so still 12 cents. And if we signed a contract today, tomorrow, it would take place in July. Options. Okay, there are several different term length options. Those are also listed in a chart in your packets. Many municipalities lately have been signing on for the 60-month option, the 5-year contract, because that way we can lock in our fixed rate. Just because there have been so many variances in energy lately, to make sure that we're getting that low rate for as long as possible. That's what I've got.
It's compared to the standard offer rates are shown on this chart here is above, so it would be, it's not a huge savings, but it is less than the standard offer and for 5 years. So it's a compounding. We're saving every year that we do this. And if the standard offer goes up, as you can see, the 2027 rate is expected to go up by 0.7 cents. And that's only been the trend lately. That happens every year, it seems like, or twice a year in some instances. We'll save money every time the standard offer increases, correct?
Absolutely, yep.
And if the standard offer goes down, we don't benefit from that because we're locked in.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But we know we've budgeted that amount, and at least we know we'll be
Right, we're
paid for.
fixed.
Yeah. Takes away the downside, but it doesn't give us any of the upside benefit.
Marianne?
Has the town attorney reviewed the contract?
Yes, some of this discussion also took place back in February, is when
Okay.
we first started looking at this. So it's the same contract. There haven't been any changes since then.
I was reading through it, and it's beyond my pay grade to understand it, frankly, so I
That's
just want
why
to
we
make
got
sure
Sparrow
somebody who
Energy Group.
knows.
In mine, that was my first question last week when this came through, is Mary's looked at this, right, and okayed it, because, yeah, it's heavy, it's thick.
And just to give you some real dollar tangible amounts, so going to Nautilus Solar subscription would save us about $7,675 annually. And then signing with First Point Power would be about $5,107 annually. So a total of just below $13,000 in savings.
And that's net of Sparrow's compensation that they receive from the suppliers.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I move to enroll in the Nautilus Solar subscription with no term minimum and sign a 60-month contract with First Point Power for a fixed rate for an annual savings of $12,700 and, well, that may not be the number now, right? But for an annual saving in excess of $12,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the vote. Robert?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes,
Vice Chair votes yes. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports. We have York Ambulance with us this evening.
Good evening, members of the board, Town Manager Peter Joseph. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. My name is Josh Allen, I'm Chief of Operations for York Ambulance. For more than 20 years, I've had the privilege of serving this community through York Ambulance. During that time, I've watched emergency medical services evolve. Worked alongside extraordinary volunteers and career professionals, responded through severe weather events, public health emergencies, and the unprecedented challenges of COVID-19. That kind of longevity is uncommon in emergency services. It reflects the dedication of the people who serve and the deep connection they feel to this community. Joining me tonight is Crystal Gay, our business manager, who also serves as an EMT and actively responds to emergencies in town. I would like to focus on what the numbers in the packet you folks received previously mean. And why they matter. Ultimately, the information before you leads us to one specific request, an additional $180,000 in operational stabilization funding to maintain uninterrupted service while long-term sustainability initiatives already underway begin producing meaningful results. The most important takeaway is this: the challenges facing York Ambulance is not unique to York Ambulance. It is an EMS funding challenge. Communities across Maine, throughout the country, are facing the same reality. The cost of providing emergency medical care continues to rise, while reimbursement systems have not kept pace with the actual cost of modern EMS operations. This is important because many people understandably assume that when an ambulance responds to a call, provides care, and submits a bill, that the ambulance is paid for the service provided. Unfortunately, this is not how EMS reimbursements works. When York Ambulance transports a patient, we bill for the care provided. However, York Ambulance does not determine the Medicare, main care, Medicaid, or private insurance reimbursements. These rates are established externally and often cover only a fraction of the actual cost to provide emergency medical care. To put that into perspective, York Ambulance billed approximately $2.23 million for services in 2025. The amount ultimately collected was approximately $614,000. That's roughly 28 cents on the dollar for the service provided. That was not because services were not delivered, bills were not submitted, or collections were not pursued. It is because this is the reimbursement structure that EMS providers are forced to operate within. Yet the remaining costs do not disappear. The ambulance still responds. The crew reports for duty. Equipment still has to be maintained. Vehicles have to be maintained and fueled. Training still has to occur. Documentation and compliance still have to be completed. Most importantly, readiness must exist 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. That financial reality exists regardless of who provides the service. A Medicare reimbursement remains a Medicare reimbursement. A non-transport remains non-billable. A lift assist remains just a lift assist, regardless of the ambulance responding, whether that ambulance says York Ambulance, a private service, or a municipal ambulance. The underlying economics are the same. The consequences of that reality are reflected directly in the financial information provided to you all. In 2021, York Ambulance reported approximately $1.72 million in revenue against a $1.58 million in expenses, resulting in a positive net income of approximately $138,000. At that time, the organization maintained approximately $676,000 in revenues. Those revenues represented decades of careful financial management, community support, membership donations, fundraising, and disciplined planning. Those revenues gave York Ambulance the ability to absorb delayed reimbursements, slow revenue months, unexpected expenses, and financial uncertainty that followed the pandemic. At the time, it was reasonable to believe that inflationary pressures and reimbursement challenges would stabilize. Instead, labor costs, healthcare expenses, insurance premiums, equipment costs, vehicle expenses, and regulatory requirements have continued to rise, whereas insurance rates remained largely unchanged. For years, York Ambulance has responded to that pressure the way responsible organizations do. We evaluated our expenses carefully, delayed non-essential purchases, pursued grants, expanded memberships, explored additional revenue avenues, reviewed operations for efficiencies, and used reserve funds before seeking additional municipal support. Every reasonable effort was made to preserve service while minimizing the burden to taxpayers. Through it all, our priority never changed. Provide service. When residents called, we responded. When families needed help, we were there. When businesses required emergency medical support, coverage remained available. During our busiest summer months, service remained in place. The financial pressures were real, but we worked hard to ensure the community never felt them. Today, York Ambulance serves a year-round population of approximately 14,000 residents. That number grows to more than 52,000 in the peak tourism season. Our crews respond to homes, businesses, schools, assisted living facilities, highways, beaches, and community events throughout York. They understand the unique demands of this community because they are part of this community. York Ambulance provides more than transportation. We provide emergency medical care delivered by compassionate professionals who know the roads, the neighborhoods, the facilities, the seasonal population shifts, and many of the residents themselves. Our crews are patient advocates, often helping connect people with additional resources when appropriate, and that local knowledge, continuity, and accountability have been built over decades. In 2025, York Ambulance responded to 1,588 calls for service. Of those calls, 1,077 were billable. Remaining 511 calls were non-billable responses. That's approximately a third of our call volume remains unbillable. Though those calls were not billable and generated no revenue, despite requiring the same personnel, requiring the same vehicles, equipment, documentation, training, and readiness as a billable transport, every one of those calls mattered, and every one of those calls received a response. That is why we are here tonight. York Ambulance has reached a point where the financial pressures absorbed internally for years can no longer be fully offset through reserves, memberships, grants, or donations, and operational efficiencies alone. The request before you tonight is for an additional $180,000 in operation stabilization. The funding would establish approximately 3 months' worth of payroll revenue and provide an operational runway necessary to maintain uninterrupted services while long-term sustainable initiatives already underway begin producing results. Those initiatives include expanding membership efforts, community sponsorship programs, fundraising initiatives, grant development, enforcing financial reporting, operational improvements, and continued collaboration with the town. The request is not intended to permanently solve every challenge facing emergency medical services. It is intended to provide stability while solutions are implemented responsibly. York Ambulance remains operational today and continues to respond to every call. The request is about strengthening stability and before service is impacted, not after. York Ambulance has earned its place in the community as a trusted and essential part through decades of service, professionalism, and commitment. We remain committed to transparency, accountability, responsible financial management, and ensuring every dollar entrusted in York Ambulance is used to support our mission. The request for you tonight is not simply about funding. It's about preserving and strengthening strengthening a service that already exists, already performs, and already serves the community every day. It is about supporting an organization that has worked hard to absorb the growing financial pressures while continuing to answer every call every day. By working together now, we can strengthen the service that has faithfully served the community for decades and assures it remains ready and locally accountable for years to come. York Ambulance has always answered the call when the community has needed us. Tonight, we are asking for the partnership necessary to continue doing exactly that. Not only for the residents who may need us tomorrow, not for the visitors who may arrive this summer, but for the generations of York residents who will depend on the service for the years to come. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Josh. We appreciate that report. As I'm sure everyone's seen, there's an item on our agenda a little bit later on, under new business, where we'll have an opportunity to discuss and to ask questions and to get some perspective and update from our town manager. And I hope that you'll stay around so that we can, and be available to answer any questions that we might have during that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is Citizens Forum. And here we go. The Citizens Forum is open to any member of the audience for comments on any town matter. All comments should be respectful in tone and should be directed to the chair. Comments should be brief and to the point. Members of the public shall refrain from making personal charges or disparaging remarks, or from verbal attacks upon the character or motives of members of town boards and committees or commissions, of town staff, or other citizens of York. Questions that require extended answers or that cannot be readily answered will be referred to the town manager for follow-up. The board will also read input received via the Select Board's page on the town website. Anyone who wishes to submit a written request for future agenda items can do so on the form available at this meeting or may obtain the form through the town manager's office. And I'm going to get some assistance in monitoring our 3-minute provision. Who's here to speak at Citizens Forum? I see one hand up. I see 2 hands up. So we'll start straight in front. Forgive me for pointing. Nope.
Alex Vedek, 30 Century Hill. Hello and good evening. I've held conversations with people of different viewpoints, some invested in the happenings around the world, while others are not. I can assure you, the situation abroad has a great impact on your life. Today marks the 114th day since the preemptive military strikes on Iran, entering the United States into an illegal war. Since May this year, over 4,000 people have died at the hands of Israel in their invasion of Lebanon. It is our responsibility as citizens to denounce the government officials enabling this modern-day genocide of the Palestinian people. There are many parallels between the Vietnam War during Richard Nixon's presidency and today's conflict in the Middle East. Collective public opinion can be a significant factor in de-escalating conflict. In May of 1970, over 1,300 college campuses, including Kent State, have engaged in anti-war protests. In the last 3 years, thousands of student protesters have been arrested and slandered by media outlets. This has happened under President Biden and has continued under Trump. If you've been paying attention, the underlying reason for spending hundreds of billions of dollars on the Iran war has flip-flopped week by week. Modern-day media leans heavily into creating false narratives and inflammatory messaging. I encourage everyone to take a moment out of their busy weeks to read just a few minutes of historic accounts from the opposing side of American militaristic intervention. It is our duty to exercise our rights. We must not stay silent and watch as people are apprehended, imprisoned, deported, as a direct violation of the constitutional rights. Here locally, we must reject those who erode our rights, to say no to warrantless surveillance, to say no to those who enable oppression. Your silence is permission for violence. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
James Kensis, 280 York Street. We decided to raise up only with the weapon of protest. It is one of the greatest glories of America that we have the right of protest. So declared Martin Luther King to a crowd early in his career. The advances this country has made have occurred with protests, some familiar, women's suffrage, civil rights, but many as important but not as well known. Over the course of this year, protests have resulted in the defeat of a corrupt authoritarian regime in Hungary, and may accomplish the same result in Albania, where thousands have taken to the streets day after day for 2 weeks to condemn the current government. It would be hoped that we in the U.S. could display the same resolve, the same determination and perseverance. Still, at one No Kings event last year, over 1,500 people appeared here in town. And more broadly, the record has been reached with the largest single-day turnouts in our history, national history. Tonight, we are less than 2 weeks from observing the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And the situation that exists now in Washington offers little encouragement. Each day, we encounter reports of overt corruption, of institutionalized cruelty, of amateurish performance by individuals who are lacking in the temperament, experience, or skill to assume the role as public servants, or even acknowledge that in truth they are public servants. It is a government that has failed us, and the crisis has infiltrated the entire system. We simply cannot look to the executive branch, to Congress, the courts, for our protection or support. The violations of the law at all levels are reflected in the many hundreds of lawsuits. We have but one recourse. As Martin Luther King said, we have the weapon of protest. In cities and towns throughout this country, there are groups of people holding signs and scheduled vigils. And what motivates them is a profound sense: this is not what America is, or ever should be, and none will rest until the aberration is no more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience here in person wishing to speak at Citizens Forum? Seeing none, I understand we have a few emails.
Yes, we do. So I've got 5 here to read. I'll go through them. Carolyn Sarno writes in from York. I recently exchanged emails with the town manager regarding 2 policy changes: trash collection and parking fees for non-registered vehicles. I appreciate the context he provided on the Select Board's rationale, but I remain concerned that both policies are inequitable in practice and fail to reflect the impact on the residents who help fund town services. Parking permits. My concern is the decision to charge seasonal property owners twice the resident rate, even though they pay the same local property taxes that support town operations. Excise and income taxes are state-level obligations and do not justify a higher municipal fee for one class of property owner. In effect, this structure reads less like a fair allocation of costs and more like a penalty imposed on seasonal residents, despite their direct financial contribution to the town. On curbside collection, I understand the equipment limitations described, but the practical result is still a significant reduction in service for residents who have received curbside pickup for decades. For many homes on private roads, the alternatives being suggested are neither practical nor affordable. Residents are being asked to absorb a loss of service without a workable replacement, even as overall costs continue to rise. That is not a minor inconvenience. It is a material shift in burden onto affected households. I would appreciate clear guidance on the practical impact of this change on our neighborhood. 20 homes will now lose curbside pickup, yet it remains unclear where trash containers are expected to be placed, whose property will be used, and how residents are expected to manage those arrangements safely and fairly. During storms or high winds, containers placed near the roadway are likely to create safety hazards, liability concerns, and disputes among neighbors. These are foreseeable consequences of the policy, not minor logistical details. We had some previous write-ins from the same neighborhood on the same question, so I'll be talking with the Public Works Superintendent, who left unfortunately tonight, and asking our vendor to reach out directly with Public Works to this neighborhood specifically, because it seems to be generating a lot of concern just for the board and for anyone listening from the neighborhood. That's the Willard Street neighborhood. There's a couple other roads in that neighborhood that will be Willard. But there'll be a couple other roads. They're very narrow lanes down on the beach that people have written in from that specific neighborhood already. Okay, so moving on, Karen Tabora from York writes in, Dear Select Board members and Town Manager, I'm writing regarding recent statements from 6-8 meetings suggesting that no one knew where the EV charging information originated and comments advising residents to be careful what they read. The source of the information comes directly from the town's April 7, 2026 Sawyer Park Nubble Light Committee materials posted on the town website. I'll skip the hyperlink just because it won't make sense if I read it out loud, but there is a hyperlink provided to a York, Maine web address. Residents who referenced EV charging were most likely relying on an official town document, not rumors, social media posts, or unofficial sources. I understand that subsequent materials refer to an original master plan, intermediate plan, and latest plan, and that EV charging may not have appeared in the later cost estimates. That suggests the concept may have changed. I've not been able to find any public document explaining when EV charging was removed. I'd appreciate it if you can point me to where this document is posted. Rather than questioning where residents obtained information or giving the impression EV charging was never part of the plan, the focus should be on explaining how and when the project evolved. The April 7 document clearly shows that EV charging was part of the concept. It is labeled number 25 in the original master plan. What I found most concerning was the implication residents were relying on incorrect or unreliable information. Residents who referenced it were simply relying on information the town provided. It should not have been made to appear that residents were spreading inaccurate information, relying on questionable sources. The information came from an official town document. If the project later changed, the appropriate response would have been to explain the change and when it occurred, rather than creating doubt about the legitimacy of the information itself. Thank you for your time, Karen Tabora. Janalee Moquin from from York, well, now it's out, sorry about that, from York writes in, Dear Select Board, I would like the entire BOS to refer to the Citizens Forum preamble that is stated before any citizen is allowed to speak during the Citizens Forum section of the BOS meeting. I previously called this preamble out, suggesting it was juvenile and bordering on obnoxious, but I'd like to also state that it's something that the BOS should be held to as well when speaking to citizens during and after the Citizens Forum. At the end of the last BOS meeting, citizen Charlie Black spoke regarding the info that was available on the official Town of York website and then subsequently circulated on Facebook regarding the Sawyer Park Nubble Light proposed changes. Charlie was pointing out that the original info was directly from the town's own website, and he questioned why, before the presentation, comments were being made regarding different info that was now being presented. After he finished his statement and was walking away from the podium, BOS member Marlis stated something to the fact that that's why you can't believe everything you read on Facebook. In a rather snarky and condescending manner, this is not acceptable whatsoever, and I'm sure you can see clearly why. Please do better, Janalee. Janalee Moquin at a different time wrote in from York, writes in, this email is to follow up from a phone call from Marla Johnson after my previous email went out this morning. Marla reached out to me in an effort to explain, I guess, why she said what she said did at the end of the last BOS meeting. Suffice it to say, the conversation did not go well. I'm not going to recount the back and forth that ensued, but would like to simply state this. The info that was circulated on Facebook came directly from the Town of York's official website. The fact that this info was different from what the BOS were reviewing is something that the BOS should have owned immediately and simply explained to the citizens what had happened. People make mistakes. None of us are perfect. It happens. No harm, no foul. The issue here is what Marla felt was appropriate to say after a citizen spoke and then proceeded to defend to me privately as being because it was late and she was tired and a bit grumpy. Just own your mistake individually and collectively. Take responsibility. And Marla did say that that was okay to read, so thank you. Mary Jane Fenergian writes in, as an out-of-state resident who has owned a home in York for over 20 years and who pays property taxes at exactly the same rate as local residents, I'm accustomed to paying the same amount that they do for being a beach parking sticker. I was outraged last Friday to be told that the Select Board had voted down a proposal of the town manager and staff to charge all York residents and non-resident property owners the same rate, $60 for most, $30 for seniors 65 and over, in favor of its own plan under which non-resident property owners would pay a flat $80, while local residents would pay less. Non-resident property owners pay property tax at the full rate, while costing the town less in services. We do not, for example, send children to school in York, and for much of the year do not even put out the trash for weekly collection. A renter who lives full-time in York does not pay a local tax bill, but enjoys cheaper parking at the beach. Why did the Select Board do this? Because non-resident property owners cannot vote them out of office. I understand that more than half of the residential properties in York are owned by non-residents. Many of these properties are assessed at far higher values than mine. Now, now that the Select Board has tripped itself up by discriminating against non-resident taxpayers, I would not be surprised if someone with a high enough assessment decided it'd be worth their while to challenge their bill in court. You've provided an opening after all. Leave aside the economic impact of losing such a suit, the mere cost of a successful defense would be far more than the town stands to gain by nickel and diming the people who are the bedrock of the tax base on their beach parking. I suggest the Select Board revise its decision this year, not next, and adopt the town manager's plan as originally proposed. That is all.
Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda is public hearings, which we have none tonight. Endorsements, we have none. And old business, we have none. Which takes us to new business. And the first item under new business is York Ambulance. Peter, would you like to?
Yeah, so we heard from York Ambulance, why York Ambulance Association under the report section earlier. As I understand, well, as communicated to us by York Ambulance, there is an immediate request for funding, this year, this fiscal year, that was placed before us. So we probably may want to talk with Josh, or we may want to deliberate up here. Just for the background for those, I think most in the room are in the ambulance or fire service, people who are left, but those watching from home, and for the record, we're in a 3-year contract with York Ambulance Association. We're entering year 3 of the 3-year contract. The contract would typically be up for negotiation this year, so we would normally start that process in the next couple months anyways, prior to the budget season, assuming we were renegotiating another 3-year contract. That's not a given, but it is typically what I think we've run under 3-year contracts for the past several cycles. So the discussion is also in line with kind of the opening of that time period, maybe a little bit earlier than we would be talking about it otherwise, but we're quickly approaching the time when we would be renegotiating. So based on the information presented by the Ambulance Association earlier in the agenda, we started a couple weeks ago, we started an internal working group with our public safety chiefs, select board membership, and then town manager's office staff to evaluate both the requests. So there's kind of 2 requests, the short-term request for funding that you heard from York Ambulance today, and then kind of the renegotiating of the contract and look at the options that are available to us. So we've met a few times. I know that the public safety chiefs have been working on their own to scramble just to look at, some options. Our primary goal in that working group is just to assure that the ambulance
Want
service
to either lean forward or bring your mic closer?
is to assure that the ambulance service remains uninterrupted to the town of York. So we are confident that there's a few options there. Obviously, the request from York Ambulance Association would require funding, and that's a deliberation that we're going to have, and how that could possibly happen. And that would, we've been told by by York Ambulance Association that would guarantee continuing service for the remainder of the fiscal year until we get to the start of July 1, the next fiscal year. So a year from this, 2 weeks from now, 54 weeks from now, which would be essentially the start of another contract term if one is negotiated prior to December with York Ambulance Association. Anything else I can add to the conversation right now, or?
Not at the moment. This is a discussion item and an opportunity for select board members to discuss this development, ask questions, and I think most important, we wanted the public to be aware of this emerging issue, and that it's a priority that we address, because this is an important public service. So I would just open it up for discussion at this point. Anybody want to chime in?
I can start. I appreciate Josh coming forward and sharing this information and giving us all the data. And I appreciate the service York Ambulance has provided to our community, and I think they've done it in a very quality way. And I agree with him when he says that this issue is not unique to York, that it's happening in many other ambulances. I think what concerned me and what upset me a little bit is just the lack of communication before this between the York Ambulance Board and this board. We have been noticing for a while that there seems to be cash flow issues, and yet we're told it was sort of not a big deal, and that it was not something we needed to deal with right now. And obviously that's not true. So, you know, in a partnership, there needs to be good communication. There needs to be better communication than what we've had in the past. And I don't need to look back to see how we got here. I mean, sometimes it's helpful to look back to make sure you don't make the same mistakes again. But I do think that there needs to be better communication. When we signed this contract we're in now, it was just 2 years ago. When you look at the numbers and you look at the 990s, this problem seems to me readily apparent then, and yet we signed a 3-year deal for $150,000 a year. Basically, there was a consultant that they had hired to evaluate their position, and we were told we couldn't look at that report. I think we should have been having this conversation 2 years ago. And now, waiting until now to have the conversation, the real issue is our options are fewer. Even 6 months ago, we'd had this conversation. We could have brought it into to our fiscal planning for this coming fiscal year, which starts July 1. But we can't do that now. I mean, the voters have voted for our budget. We have to jump through much bigger hoops to take care of this request. I mean, obviously, you know, we are going to make sure that the town has ambulance service. It's a critical need. We will make sure that happens. But it just makes this much more difficult that we didn't have that communication going back and forth, the trust that brings us to a much more difficult place today. And frankly, that's very frustrating for me. So that's my version of starting it off.
Marilyn?
First, let me say it's extremely important, we all know, and critical that the town has an ambulance service. Cannot function without one. But just diving into the information that was given, it's heartrending to see you guys were bleeding and said nothing. You know, I agree with Robert in the fact that this wasn't brought forth in a timely manner, and in knowing billing practices in regards to medicine, that your reimbursement always lags behind, and it doesn't matter if you think you're going to catch up because you're waiting on the government to reimburse you monies, and those monies that you think you're going to get at times is not the amount that you get, and the amount that is going to be reimbursed by your secondary also lags behind, and if it's Medicare, you probably will never get it, so you're always in a negative. So from a billing standpoint, and I'm sure you have really good billers, and even with really good billers, you're lagging behind so much. I'm not sure that there's a hole here that you can dig yourself out of, because the amount is just so much at this point in time, and it's by year. So the monies you collect now, which is going to be fewer than, less than what you get, because the further back you wait. If you don't get that money within 2 weeks, if you don't request that money again within 2 weeks of when you get a denial, you will never get that money. And I'd like to see just how much of a billing cycle you guys had and what the recuperation rate is in submitting that information and getting that so that you could get reimbursed. So what you see in numbers saying we probably will get this, if 50% of those patients that you had, you're now putting billing again over the 2-week period or whatever Medicare allows for you to get that, you're never going to get it. They're not going to give it to you. So the deep dive in looking at this is kind of flawed. Not too sure yet where we are. So I'm just saying that should have done better in coming forward to say this is what's going on with your ambulance and this is how it's going to affect the town. We don't want to see this go under, but we have a lot of thinking to do even from me, just looking at the numbers. Medical billing is hard. So we're going to see. That's it.
Mary Ann, did you have anything?
I did make a lot of notes to myself as I was reading through the contract and the report. Being new on the board, I'm not sure how long I can still say I'm new. But I haven't had the opportunity to have the conversations with the ambulance board that I think some of my peers have, and the timeliness of information coming out. And as I was reviewing this, I did have a question whether the 180,000, I construed it to only be for a few months, but if that will bring you through the fiscal year of 2027, that's a different answer for me, because I think it's important in the future. This needs to be vetted through our budget committee, and it wasn't last year and the year before, or it was, but not to the amount that it needed to be reimbursed. And I would agree with my peers. I think that knowledge was there, and for whatever reason, it's unfortunate that it's just coming to light now. And I understand the non-billable calls. My in-laws and my mother were recipients of many of those. They fall down and they can't get up. And that's been a long time coming, the 1/3 of your calls. So I'm not going to belabor that point. I just, I think this board, we need to discuss whether it's to come, whatever funds. I'd like to see at some point when we discuss it, the nuts and bolts of it, maybe to grant up to a certain amount to see if the York Ambulance Association can raise funds. And now that this is a public plea, maybe there will be some residents out there that can come forth to help. I know we have a contingency fund that's not bottomless. I know there's a provision for special budget meetings, but that's really for unforeseen emergencies. And is this unforeseen? I guess it was unforeseen for me. Yes, I look forward to going forward. I actually made a note of, is it a point in time that the ambulance association, the ambulance function should become a function of the fire departments and no longer have the York Ambulance Association? I don't know the minutia of the 501c3, and I'm not suggesting that at all, but I am suggesting maybe we look at the dynamics of what we put forth for emergency services. And you folks in the audience know well more than I do, but typically I do see if there's an ambulance call, sometimes there's the fire engine is there too. So the silver lining of perhaps this critical situation is perhaps a discussion of how we can do this better and how we can get more bang for our buck. And I guess that's about all I have to say.
Thank you. I'll echo a lot of what my colleagues have said. I wanted to thank you, Josh and Crystal Gay, for coming forward. I'm really disappointed that aside from other Crystal, that your board members are not here.
We're here.
You're here. Wonderful. I need to put my glasses on. That is you, Eric. Thank you for coming. It is nonetheless disappointing that this wasn't brought to us sooner, because as you described as a structural problem, and it's been going on for a while. And even though there are 3-year contracts, that doesn't mean we can't be talking and amending. So we're in a difficult situation. I think it was important to bring this forward to the public. And I'd just really like to say that I'm grateful for our town manager for jumping all over this and for convening this task force of our emergency services folks in town who care deeply, as we all do, about the service that's provided and the people who provide it, and want to make sure that there's continuity in service going forward, and are addressing both sort of near-term potential solutions as well as options for longer term. And so I think one of the points of tonight is to let people know of the situation, but also to let them know that there's tremendous focus on it and tremendous response within the town, because this is critical. So, yeah, a lot more to come. There's no answers tonight, but everyone that who's been in recent conversations and meetings about this has really come together with a sense of urgency, and it has really shown to me how special this town is in caring about things that are this important. So, and I know, once again, Josh and Crystal, thank you for being the face and presenting this information to us.
Yes.
Of course.
So, Peter, could you give us just a sense of the time frame of the task force? I know you've met a couple times, but you get a sense of when you might be coming back here with suggestions?
Yeah, I think so one thing, yeah. Sorry, too much going on in my head right now. So we've met twice. We will be meeting weekly, I think, moving forward. We've kind of broken it into 2 parts. The first is the immediate request from York Ambulance Association. That's going to need some evaluation very quickly by you folks. So I think we'll be bringing something to you shortly. I think Mary Ann hit on it, maybe others might have mentioned it, but whether this qualifies for a special budget referendum, how that can be structured, that is a charter and a legal question. It's not, we can't just appropriate money mid-cycle unless you folks as the select board make a determination that meets one of these 2 criteria. So we'll talk through that at a very shortly upcoming select board meeting, probably one of your next 2 meetings. Because there's a clock ticking on that. I mean, you can have a special referendum at any time, but there's a 60-day lead time, and there's probably a 45-day lead time. We did this about 2 years ago in August with the budget committee, so it doesn't just involve the select board, it involves the budget committee. The question of whether or not there's enough funding without having to go through that is kind of what we're looking at right now. So there's a very limited amount of discretionary money the select board has access to, something along the lines of what we'll talk about later on in the meeting for contingency funding and possible outside funding. I know the public safety chiefs are looking at those options. So you'll have to make a decision pretty quick. We'll provide information to you, obviously, on and kind of structure that decision. But on the funding question, moving forward. The other question is a much longer term question. We have probably until December to talk about future years moving forward, because we'd have to make, I'll have to include something in the budget starting in December. So that would mean the select board would ultimately be talking about contract or other options or things like that this fall. So we'll have to know what the budget request is before December. So we have roughly a 6-month window on 5.5-month window on that discussion, but a very short window of probably 1 month on the immediate funding request. And I think that matches up with York Ambulance's timeframe for funding request as well, so that it's
The numbers seem
fall.
to indicate they need something in the fall,
That's correct.
September, October.
Right, so it's probably going to be a combination of a couple different things here, yep. And this isn't just, if I think, we're not trying to make it more of a production. If there were a couple $100,000 that you could just allocate out of discretionary funding, we don't really have that. Our budgets are pretty tight, as you all know, as we go through that process. So we do have ambulance funding. It's in a line with just fire department and ambulance funding. So, you know, we don't have $200,000 in that line. That wouldn't be a substantial hit to hydrants or one of the two fire departments or both of the fire departments. They can't, you know, do their job with $200,000 less. So, or at least the way they're doing it now. So it would probably be a supplemental funding discussion. I would love it if we had $100,000 in each of our fire departments or the ambulance line that we could allocate. It's not written into the budget. The budget committee doesn't let us do that. We don't propose it, and the public doesn't vote for those kind of margins, so.
Thank you.
I think this working group is going to evaluate alternatives and come forward with a recommendation.
Yeah. Great.
All right, anything else on that topic?
No, so I would, yeah,
Thank you,
so
David.
probably in the next 2 meetings, this will be on the agenda again, either next meeting or 2 meetings from now, so.
All right,
Sounds good.
there we go. Next on our agenda
Thank you.
is disposition of Village Fire Department Squad 2. Chief Apgar?
Good evening, David Apgar, York Village Fire Chief. As you all know, we just received our new engine 2 from Pierce Manufacturing in 2025 engine for fighting fire, and it's replacing our squad that we just got rid of, and now we're getting rid of our squad. And the squad itself was not, as you all know, was in pretty tough shape. So the department initiated the disposal process for the surplus 2008 Pierce pumper and advertised its availability through multiple channels, including the York Village Fire Department website, Facebook Marketplace, and the Maine Municipal website from June 5th through June 12th, 2026. Responses received were from Bruce Mirando for $4,750, Anthony McCavey for $4,600, and then they had 3 individuals, Matt Stone, Ken D. Cobb, and Jason L. Clolier, who all declined to put a bid in. Market considerations, the evaluation of a scrap value was conducted as part of the decision-making process. Main scrap aluminum price approximately is 0.07 cents per pound. In Rhode Island, the scrap metal aluminum price is approximately 30 cents per pound. While Rhode Island offers a higher per pound return, transporting the apparatus would incur an estimated $1,100 towing cost. Based on projected scrap value, this would yield a $6,000 gross, resulting in only about a $200 net gain over the highest local offer. The analysis, the marginal financial benefit of transporting the vehicle out of state does not justify the additional logistics effort, cost, and time. The current highest bid of $4,750 represents a fair and immediate return with a minimum further expenditure.
So,
Accepting their local offer allows for efficient closure of the project and eliminating ongoing storage and administrative cost considerations. Our recommendation is based on the response received, and the cost-benefit analysis is recommended that the department award the sale of the 2008 Pierce pumper to Bruce Miranda for $4,750 and conclude this disposal process.
So as a reminder, we had not just trouble with this truck, maintenance trouble for years and years and years. It actually died on the road several weeks before the new truck came in, blew the turbo and possible engine damage. It was essentially towed to the junkyard, almost with one stop in the wrecker yard. We did an effort to try to see. There was a little more interest than just scrap, but not much more in a fire engine without a functioning engine that has had all of the equipment removed to be put on the new fire truck. So
There was, the question, well, can we replace the motor? And the answer was really no, because of the electrical issues it had and rust and so forth.
I said you could have started with that part. We would just say sell it.
It was an evil vehicle. I think it was just possessed.
Well,
It was possessed from day
It,
one.
it did provide the town and us a real good service for many years. It just wasn't going to meet that 25 years that we, or 40 years that we usually get out of vehicles. Technology's changed and electrics have
Like
changed
every
and
time we
manufacturing's
watched it
changed.
roll, we were wondering whether it was going to come back.
So just for the public that's wondering why a fire truck's only worth this, it's a non-functioning husk at this point in time. So.
It begs the question to me, what does Mr. Miranda want to do with this fire truck that can't move?
Take it down to Rhode Island. Those two folks were from Mass, and I actually had one in front, standing with me with the cash in hand, and the other one is on my phone, and we were doing a bidding war back and forth. They both were going to get it, and there wasn't much parts left on it because we, obviously took whatever we could that was worth something to us.
So it's going to
And
be a
then-
big paperweight in Rhode Island.
It's going to go right straight to the scrap, yeah, for that 30 cents, where we could only get 7 cents in Maine.
Any other questions or comments, or are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, I moved to sell Quad 2, a 2008 Pierce pumper to Bruce Mirando for $4,750 and conclude the disposal process.
Second.
And say good riddance to Squad 2.
Any other questions or discussion? Call the vote. Robert?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Vice Chair votes yes. 4-0. I guess we don't say congratulations.
Condolences.
All's well that ends well. All right, next under new business is York Community Service Association property tax relief request. And I believe Janie Sweeney is with us.
Good evening, Janie Sweeney, Family Services Manager, YCSA. We had a gangbusters response to our property tax relief outreach efforts this year. We partnered with the Center for Active Living and the AARP tax consultants that come in and do the taxes. To see in real time, folks were getting the refund back from the state, which would make them eligible for the town refund. And so we ran out of money really quickly for both the property tax relief program itself, red funds, and now we have a wait list with 76 people on it, which is double our number from last year. And as you might imagine, we have a bit of a shortfall in the amount of $53,843.50. So I'm here to request contingency funds for that shortfall.
Town Manager, you want to give us a little color from your
How are we
perspective?
making this happen, Dan?
I do, yeah, so I've gotten several comments from board members, well, why are we even talking about this? Just write the check, I think, is for property tax relief is what I've been asked. I do think we can cover probably all of the requests. What we're waiting for is the end of the fiscal year, July 1. We have already spent, just as a refresher, we have the town line survey from the Kittery Town Line, ending that process. The well report that we did for a potentially contaminated well and investigation. And we have the village fire air ventilation system that have already been approved. We didn't want to wait until the budget process this year, if you remember. So already approved out of contingency funds this year, and we have a couple other items floating out there as well. So you have $100,000 of select board contingency and $200,000 of supplementary contingency. The rules have to be, it has to be an unanticipated expense to fall under supplementary contingency. The select board contingency can be used for any item the board deems. So I do believe, so it's important to note the select board contingency is in Article 4 on the budget approvals, and supplementary contingency is its own line. So some of these items that were originally approved out of select board contingency, the town line survey, the well, and the replacement of the new ventilation system, it's not a replacement, those are all contracted services that I can move somewhere else in the budget pending adequate year-end money, and there is going to be money, some money in Article 4. So I sat down with the finance director, and we're talking probably over $100,000. I don't know the exact amount right now, but I should be able to move these contracted services out. And then that would give you, to account for them differently, and that would give you the ability to spend the select board contingency amount in Article 4 on the request from Janie, which I think is, I'm hearing is supported by the entire board.
Excellent news.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we just need to confirm that nothing crazy happens in the next 2 weeks, which is always a possibility, and that when we get, probably at your July 13 meeting, we'll have some of close preliminary numbers on Article 4 expenses. Yeah, I think that's it. So we wanted the request to come in. We needed the request just to be documented that you've approved. The demand existed prior to, the request existed prior to the fiscal year. So we can, so it's not backdating the money after the fact. The money was actually or approved in FY26, and we would be approving using FY26 funds, but it won't happen until July. But this documents that the request is from this fiscal year.
Great. I want you to know, I mean, the folks that learned about this program through Cal were just so over the moon to know that the town was so dedicated to trying to help people with the property tax relief program. So thank you from all of them.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I ask Janie a couple questions?
Sure.
The program itself, I know it's changed over the years. Do you give the people looking for relief half of what they're entitled in the fall and then half in the spring? Or is it just first come, first serve, and they get whatever the calculation is and you send them a check?
It's calculated on the main 1040 return. So if you are eligible and receive the credit from the state of Maine for that one line item, the property tax fairness credit, then you're eligible for our refund here in York.
Okay.
And it's the state refund has a cap of $2,000, and the town refund has a cap of $1,000. So you get back half of what you get back from the state.
Okay. Now, this obviously came to your attention in the past couple months. Do you anticipate we're probably going to have the same shortfall next year because it wasn't in the budget?
Right.
But
Yeah.
after next year, we now know
We'll really
more
have to be able
monies.
to put in more money. Yeah, I mean, we've tried all kinds of different ways to reach folks, to let them know that this program is out here. We've been on social media, we've been on, in the Sentinel, we've been in the York Weekly, we've been on, the town we've worked with the town clerk, Lynn Osgood, to send out, a yellow form each tax season in August with all the programs that are available, but come tax time, folks don't remember that this program is. So this year, we have started to collect email addresses for everyone, and when the program is open in the February 1st of next year, we're gonna blast out an email to just say, don't forget, this is out available to folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, I will say thank you to Janie for doing this. I mean, for years, we weren't giving away hardly anything.
Yeah.
This is just, I know we got to come up with the money. We will come up with the money. He promised me today, we will find this money. But this is
Promised you
just,
other things before that haven't panned out, though, and you,
but in this time, you're going,
oh, I have to follow through on, okay, got it, yeah.
this is just such a great program. I mean, we want people to age in place. We want people to be able to afford their drugs and their foods and everything else. I mean, legal drugs, I'm talking. But, this is just such a great program for that. So thank you so much that it's up to this number.
Yeah.
I hope it's more
Really
next
so
year.
excited,
We'll find
yeah.
the money.
Yeah,
This
we're
is just,
gonna
this
reach
is,
out to a couple more
I mean, we
tax
talk
folks
about
in town that
housing.
we
This
know.
is housing. Yeah.
Yeah, for some people, I mean, if you got the cap from the state and the cap from us, that's $3,000.
Yeah.
And that's cash in hand, it's not, money off your taxes, so, you can pay the tax with it, or you can do other things, which are needed to be able to maintain yourself at home. We want to keep people housed, that's the goal.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you for the support.
And this, like, GA is income qualified, you go through that whole process, similar, it's not identical to GA, but it's a similar process that you
Yeah.
folks use, right? Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Janie, as I recall, last year it was more like 4,000 or
Yeah, it's
4,500
not-
that you
I
were
was just
short.
looking back to see what, how much it was. It was like $4,400, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so this
that
was
we were
really
short, so-
unanticipated, and we're going to face the same
Yeah, it'll be
shortfall. And
this
it was,
year
of
and
course,
next year.
always subject to voter approval and funding. And it's my understanding that in order to qualify, in addition to the income qualifying for the state, that people have paid their local property taxes.
Oh, yes, right,
And
they
then
have.
this is refunding them a portion of them. So that's why we talk about the money being available to them for other needs, because they have already paid their property taxes. So I think that's important to point out. These are not
These are not folks that are delinquent in their tax bills.
correct.
They are current.
Correct. Good. Well, we look forward to the final numbers so we can,
Right. This is the final number. We had the cutoff was,
the final numbers from Peter, I meant, so that we
Right, yeah,
can, so
okay.
that we can
This is our final
take
number, though,
action.
yeah.
Because the
Program
program
ended
is
on-
now closed for
Yes.
this year.
Yes, it is.
That's also important to say.
yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So do you think it's a combination of greater awareness as well as greater need, or is it really awareness? And obviously,
I
a
really
couple
think-
years
yeah,
ago,
I
we
mean,
increased the maximum
It's a
amount.
combination.
It's all those
It's a
things.
combination, but it's awareness. It's reaching those folks. Honestly, without standing out on York Street with a sign, I really couldn't imagine where else we could have touched people. But boy, getting people where they were doing their taxes, that's the sweet spot, because you can see it, right, in real time.
I do have a little bit of concern about next year, because,
Yeah.
I don't, it would be really challenging for you to come here with a $100,000 request, for example, but as Robert said, where there's a will, there's a way.
The thing is
People will
that,
find the money, come on.
Well, there's
the
there's
need
been
is
other
there.
requests and needs for
Yeah.
mission-critical services, so.
it's a lot, but the need is there. We know the need is there. We
Yes.
just didn't really know how to flush out the people.
Yep.
And now we have, so we're in the right direction. So,
Thank you, all right.
thank you.
We'll see you again. Next is, we've got a couple of trailer requests. Peter, you want to briefly
Yes,
explain how this program
Yep,
works?
So these are not my bailiwick. These come from the Code Enforcement Department. Our ordinances allow trailers to be placed on property during construction. The ordinance, that is not a code enforcement or a planning board call, though. When you do that, that becomes a select board call. So these are discretionary. They come to you. Harry has done a write-up just very briefly here on both of them, so we can start. I think 15 Newport Avenue is the first, and they are constructing a new home. They have a valid permit. They qualify. They just need your approval to do that, so.
I have a question, if nobody else does. Do these have a time limitation? When we say temporary,
1 year? I believe it's 1 year.
1 year? Good to know.
If they're not completed in 1 year, do they come in for an extension?
They can if the building permit is still active, but that becomes discretionary on your part. At some point, you can, sorry, go ahead, Marion.
Are these like trailers for where the construction crew would go in, or do they have running water and porta potties? And are they are the people living in there, or is it for
Yes.
construction? They're living in there.
Yeah. So typically campers, they don't have to be campers. It could be like a single wide, but it's typically either people already have, yeah, people already have RVs or campers and they bring them on site. You can't have a year-round camper set up on your property that's being occupied. Obviously, if you own a camper, you can store it there, but it's not supposed to be a dwelling unit on the property. This lets a camper or an RV be a dwelling unit on your property temporarily for up to a year during construction.
Okay, thank you.
Should we just vote?
Go for it.
I move to allow a temporary trailer at 15 Newport Avenue, map 20, lot 81-A, while the owner builds their home.
Second?
Could we just do the other one too? Or you
No,
do it?
you talked about that.
One at a time. Any other discussion on this one? Take a vote. Robert?
Yes.
Marilyn? Mary Ann?
Yes.
And Vice Chair votes yes. 4-0, passes. And next, we have a similar request for a property located at 51 Fieldstone Road. Peter, is there anything you'd like to add to this one?
Harry provided the same write-up. There's a valid building permit from 2025, number 2025-0309. That's all I've got.
Mary Ann, go first.
I checked out the address on Vision Appraisal. There's a current house there now. Are they knocking that down and building a whole new one?
I don't know the exact sequence. There's actually 2 houses on the property. It's a little bit of a complicated situation. They're, as I understand it, being connected. I think Robert used to be a butter, but is no longer in a butter to this property. Is that correct?
Well,
Robert?
I lived in that neighborhood.
In that neighborhood? Yep.
So is that the one that's been, probably about a year ago, some neighbors came up? That's the same piece of property?
It's the same piece of property, and there was also this doesn't affect the recommendation, but there had previously been a notice of violation for wetlands issues on the property, and a replanting plan had been approved, and as far as I know, is under execution.
So I'm not going to support this. I mean, usually I would, but I'm not going to support this for exactly what you said. I mean, they have 2 dwelling units on it, and I think the intent is to try to connect the 2 of them. One house has been gutted. This other house is habitable. I mean, there were lots of cars in the parking lot as I drove through this weekend. So they have a house that's habitable there. They combined the 2 lots. They went to the planning board and had the planning board agree to have them combine it. So they have a habitable house on the property. So my inclination is to vote no. The work on the property has stopped for months. And then if in the future sometime they're demolishing that building that's there now, or they're gutting it to connect it, they can come back and make another case for it. But right now, I don't think they need a second house on that. They don't need an RV on that property because they have a house.
So we did talk with code enforcement about this. The ordinance is broad and vague and just says the select board may, right? Like, so you have the right to approve this. We talked with code enforcement and suggested as a potential future ordinance amendment, and I think Carrie's going to look at it. It's not in the ordinance, doesn't say you can't evaluate it based on that criteria, but it doesn't say you shall evaluate based on habitability. I think that's probably a good recommendation for future amendments to the ordinance, because I think the intent is to provide a habitable living situation, kind of
You've been
like
displaced from your house
Yeah,
because it's undergoing renovation, then.
Mary Ann's original question, would they live in the trailer? Yes, the intent is that if the house is uninhabitable, that you would put a camper RV trailer of some sort there for temporary quarters. The ordinance it wouldn't prohibit what Robert's suggesting, but it also doesn't just blatantly say that. So we're talking with code and planning about maybe amending that in the future, so.
So, just so I can clarify, because I don't know this house and I don't, they're asking for a trailer because they're building on the property. I'm taking it, right?
Yes.
So basically that's a criteria for having a trailer. If you're building, you can request a trailer to be placed on it, outside of anything else.
Correct. So there's 2 houses on the parcel. One is uninhabitable, the other is habitable, as I understand it, at least is what code enforcement has said. So
which one are they building? Which one are they fixing?
both will be connected, and one that's currently uninhabitable has been gutted and will be rebuilt and refinished. So I think, I'm not sure if the other house that's currently inhabited will be gutted and uninhabitable at the same time as the other one, but if that's the case, that would definitely, I think, support the request. I guess Harry could have that discussion with the property owner, our code enforcement office.
So we really don't know their plan for the habitable one.
I have no knowledge to give you, so.
Yeah, I would agree with Robert's point of view. If there is a dwelling unit right now that somebody can live in, I don't see why they need a temporary trailer. So I'd be inclined to support Robert's view on that. I think the intent of this ordinance is, if you don't have anything there, to give you some relief, but there is relief there already.
And the lots were combined, so it's not like a habitable house on one lot and a trailer on the other. It sounds like it's all one lot. Is there a motion, or do we want to set this one aside? No motion.
No motion.
So if the circumstances are different than what we discussed here, I'll bring it back in front of you. I'll have the code enforcement officer follow up on that. I think, so what I'm hearing is if there is a plan in the future that it's not habitable, we'll bring it back to you, both of the
I
structures.
think we need clarification as to whether or not the other home that's on the property is going to be lived in, or is it going to be holding on to all of the stuff from the old house that you're.
I'm not informed enough to be able to tell
I
you
know.
guys
I'm just saying.
correct on that, yeah.
So no action taken on this item. And that brings us to a Games of Chance license request from Old York Historical Society.
Madam Vice Chair, I move to approve 2026 Games of Chance letter for Old York Historical Society.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none. Robert?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Vice Chair votes yes, 4-0. And then, almost last but not least, board and committee actions, which for this meeting are the annual reappointment of various board and committee members to various boards and committees.
Yep, so we provided, the manager's office contacted each person who is up, expiring, who currently serves on a town board or committee. Most of our boards and committees are staggered 3-year terms. So that means about a third of all of our board and committee members expire June 30th of each year, so next week. So it has been typical practice to reappoint any members who are interested. As you're aware, we do not have a long list of people knocking down the doors for most of our boards and committees. So the standing practice for the past several years, many years, has been reappoint committee members unless there's something that's come to your attention where the person either doesn't want to serve or there's an issue. So all these board members have been, that are listed in front of you, have been contacted. Well, all of the board members that are expiring were contacted. The ones in front of you replied and stated that they wish to be reappointed. So some did not, so this is not a complete list. I think it's about 7/8 of the expiring people got back to us, though. So you may see some additional, you always see some additional throughout the years. People like, oh, I forgot to get reappointed or didn't reply. There are a few changes this year. A few committees had, the staggering had been set so that we had more than 1/3 of the people expiring this year. So I think on 2 or possibly 3 of these, you might see one person appointed to a 2028 term instead of a 2029 term, so a 2-year term to reestablish the correct staggering on these boards and committees. Most of these instances, there were people that, there were either vacancies and we can stagger future appointments, so we don't need to do that for most of them. And there are a few changes here from alternate to full and full to alternate that were mutually either requested by the board or mutually agreeable both parties. For example, one person wasn't able to really commit at the full level of a full member anymore, but was a productive member of the board, asked to be appointed as an alternate. There's an alternate who the board wished to appoint. So you'll see 2 of those swaps. You won't, they're not called out in here, but if you looked at the master list, you would see them from last year, that a few people are changing positions. Those were requests from the board themselves, so.
Any questions or discussion? I'd just like to say, if this is a third of our committee members, which means volunteers, we have a lot of engaged people in this community. This is a long,
And there's a vacancy list attached to
so
the back too.
vacancies.
So we should point out that some have substantial 3, 4, 6 members worth of vacancies on some of these boards. So appeals, assessment review, bike ped, climate action, veterans affairs, CCRAB, harbor board, HTC, historic markers, municipal social service, parks and rec, planning, recycling, shellfish, and York Housing Authority are all looking for members. So if anybody has an interest in any of those, come see me and we'll talk with the select board.
All right, does anyone want to take on a motion here?
I'll do it.
Yay, Mary Ann.
I move that the following individuals be reappointed to the following committees for a term expiring June 30th of the respective year. Paul Solakane, 2029, full. Ken Churchill, 2029, full membership. Mitch Picard, 2028, full member. Robert Lascelles, 2028, alternate. For the Assessment Review Board, Robert Han, 2029, full membership. For the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, Judy Sewell, 2029, full membership. Scott Brown, 2029, an alternate. For the Climate Action Committee, Cornelius Murphy, 2029, full membership. Committee for Veteran Affairs, James Carabello, 2029, full membership. Committee to Combat Racism and Bias, Ann Bancroft, 2029, full membership. Victoria Simon, 2029, full membership. Archie Jones, 2029, full membership. For the Conservation Commission, Mary Lou Dopart, 2029, full membership. Gregory Leposki, 2029, alternate. For the Harbor Board, Amanda Bouchard, 2029, full membership. For the Historic Markers Committee, Rosalind Revelock Frost, 2029, full membership. James Kensis, 2029, full membership. For the Municipal Social Services Review Board, Maureen Jello, 2029, full membership. For the Parks and Recreation Board, Thomas Rose, 2028, full membership. William Olson, 2029, full membership. For the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, Elizabeth Mazars, 2029, full membership. Elizabeth Engelhardt, 2029, full membership. For the Shellfish Commission, Brad Hunter, 2028, full membership. Michael Macy, 2029, full membership. For the Sawyer Park Committee, Brian Ross, 2029, full membership. Kim Terigny, 2029, alternate. For the Community Garden Committee, Laura Tangerini, 2029, full membership. Ryan Males, 2029, full membership. Denise McGee, 2029, full membership. For the York Housing Authority, Alan Gittleson, 2028, full membership. Gail Billette, 2029, full membership. Janie Sweeney, 2029, full membership. For the York River Wild and Scenic Stewardship Committee, Jim Smith, 2028, full membership. Susie Rich, 2028, full membership. Beth Cromwell, 2029, full membership.
Awesome job.
Is there a second?
Second. Sorry. So busy.
Any other discussion?
I just want to congratulate Mary Ann, that was great. I'm sure everybody else, they could hear their name. That was through a very
I
pronunciation.
think she got jealous. I got to talk for 20 minutes straight last meeting, and she wanted to prove that she had it in her. So.
Okay, Robert?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
And Vice Chair votes yes as well. Motion passes 4-0. Which, congratulations to all. Which brings us to future agendas.
Okay, so we have a short break. So the next one is not until July 13th will be our next meeting. And I only have a few things currently holding place on this agenda, and that is the flag and banner policy. And then I also have potentially bringing back the York ambulance funding request and the short-term residential rental data.
It's a whole bunch of other stuff on here.
And there's a lot of stuff on there that I don't have on here.
So we have a 3-week break. There will be things that will.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing? I wanted to really thank Old York Historical Society. They put on such a great, on Juneteenth, they had a walking tour of York, and you learned so much about York. It's amazing. If people have never done it, they really should. It was so awesome to know all about York and how it started, and, you know, the poor lady who was in the jail, you know, and of course, she did kill somebody, but.
Poor lady who
was a long story, but nonetheless, it was just a wonderful, they do such a great job, you know, in keeping York alive and its history. So I just wanted to do a shout out to them.
Excellent. All right, anything else for future agendas?
I'm just noticing on the radar, though, the other ones are listed. Are we just not ready for them?
No, a lot of those will probably be ready. We'll go over that with Todd and Marla. I think,
Just
Okay.
sync those up and add them.
yeah, several of those updates will probably need to go on, or probably appropriate to go on there. The seawall, well, both of the seawall projects, the York ambulance will be back for discussion, it sounds like. And Ellis Park was on the radar. We didn't talk about that when you came up, but potentially the Ellis Park contract for discussion, so it needs to be done this summer. Now is the time.
All right.
And you'll get a full report on the status of 1045 US Route 1.
Okay.
And we'll find out where the money's coming from to pay the YCSA the $53,000.
Yeah.
Contingency.
I know where it's coming from. I'll just make sure that there's enough there, yes.
Okay, any other business? Citizens Forum number 2? Oh, yes.
So on the town website, it has us listed as select board members. Could we put, well, I speak for myself, could I have my email address there? I mean, people can contact all of us, but if someone wants to contact just one member, they don't really have a way to do that.
Isn't it just your mm@yorkmaine.org?
Yeah. But I think if it were there, they could click on it and
Yeah.
send us an email.
Oh, like that, oh, okay.
As opposed to the whole board.
There was some insight when I was employed by the town of York in my previous career for IT did not want our emails on the website for some security reason. Whether that's still a fact, I don't know.
You're correct, but the second part is the most important part, whether that's still an issue or not. I think that's why the town originally scrubbed most of the email accounts of the
I'd
executive.
like mine there, but
We used to have a phone number on there.
Still, your phone number's still there. Your phone number's not important. It's just the email address, apparent. That's
No, the phone
sarcasm, sorry.
number's not.
I think there was a security breach in a different community that happened through email addresses that way, and so it was recommended that they get taken off the website. But we can talk with IT to see
Yeah.
if that's possible,
I would not.
But
or
we're
in
talking
some
like-
capacity to
We're
put them
talking
back
like
on.
10 years ago, though, right? I mean, it was
No,
a
I
while.
think-
Recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that.
Request registered.
Any other business? Any Citizens Forum?
We'll talk David into it.
David Brinkman from York Beach. I have the opposite of a disparaging remark. And that is, I've been coming to Board of Selectmen meetings and Select Board meetings, and when I'm out of town, I'm following it on the web for 25 years or so. And the present iteration of the board, in my view, has been more collegial, more professional, and has tackled and made progress on important issues more than any other board in my experience. And I'd like to congratulate you all for that and encourage you to keep up the good work. Don't stop now.
thank you.
Thank you,
And,
David.
and in danger of becoming what's her name, Ms. Drew, that
Janet Drew.
has issues with 5G and so on, in danger of succeeding her in on the issue of trash collection. I want to bring to you a potential problem that could affect how the public supports you if it's not handled delicately. And that is, as I'm bicycling, I notice as people put out their trash containers that about a third of people already have trash containers that have a lift bar on them. And the ones that they have for recycle are blue, and the ones that they have for mixed waste are either black or a dark gray. I have no idea what Casella Waste has in mind for those two kinds of trash containers. But if you look at it, you can see that people tend to be frugal here in York, or at least think of themselves as being frugal. And people who have put out money to buy these containers, and if they are able to continue to use them as the new service goes into effect, the town will save a lot of money and for not having to buy so many containers. And the people will feel as though they are doing their part in not having to dispose of their containers. When you look at it from Casella's point of view, they're going to have one driver on a truck. The driver has to look at 4 different colors of containers sitting out there and trying to figure out which ones of those are general waste and which ones are for recycle. It will complicate their trash pickup. So you have to look at both sides and try to figure out which is the best way to handle that situation. And if you decide to go to make things easy for Casella and difficult and uneconomical for a third of the people in York, you can expect that there will be some blowback. And I suggest that you seriously consider which way you want that to go if you have any control over it. I mean, the die may already have been cast. But thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for Citizens Forum number 2? Have we had any come in on the website?
We'll tell you in 30 seconds.
While we're waiting, good job, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, thank
And
you.
look at
And
the time.
Aren't we proud of ourselves? I
Yes.
promise,
We
Marilyn,
do not have additional write-ins, no.
Thank you for checking. It's 9:35. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
And I'm still awake. Yes.
Yep. We'll give Todd the business that we finished early and he wasn't in charge.
It's him.